Let's begin. Number 11. Pre-shopping road rage. Most people have the decency to at least enter the store before they lose their minds. The social contract usually holds until you're at least within sight of a doorbuster, but not in Reno, Nevada. In 2016, the rage started before the savings. It was Thanksgiving night, around 6 p.m. at a Walmart parking lot. A 33-year-old man named Joseph Kirshner was in a Jeep, presumably ready to go do battle for a discounted blender. A dark-coloured sedan, also hunting for a prime spot, got into some kind of parking lot altercation with the Jeep. This wasn't a "you took my spot" argument. This was pure, high-octane road rage that just happened to be taking place in a retail environment. Tempers flared, words were exchanged. And in the grand tradition of terrible Black Friday decisions, someone in the sedan decided this disagreement over asphalt was a capital offence. As Kirshner, who was a passenger, got out of the Jeep, the driver of the sedan just shot him, fired a gun in a crowded parking lot, full of families because of a traffic dispute. The bullet hit Kirshner, and he went down. The sedan sped off, leaving a man to die on the cold pavement before he'd even had a chance to be disappointed by the lack of consoles in stock. First responders rushed Kirshner to the hospital, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead. The shooter was later arrested, but the point remains. The frenzy of Black Friday is so powerful, it can kill you before you even get out of your car. It's like a magical aura of terrible decisions. Number 10, the human wasp. This one isn't a death, but it belongs in the Hall of Fame for bizarre human behaviour. It proves that the weapons of Black Friday aren't always guns or knives. Sometimes they're tactical chemical agents. Welcome to Porter Ranch, California, 2011. A Walmart. The doors are about to open for the 10 p.m. sale. The prize, a heavily discounted Xbox 360. A crowd has formed, vibrating with that special blend of anticipation and greed. Among them is one woman who did not come to play, she came to win. As the doors opened and the crowd began its ritualistic surge, this woman decided she didn't like competition, so she produced a can of pepper spray, and she just deployed it. She didn't spray one person who was in her way. No, that would be amateur hour. She began spraying the crowd, sweeping the can back and forth like she was watering her garden with liquid agony. She hit at least 20 people, including children. People fell to the ground, blinded, coughing, unable to breathe, their lungs and eyes on fire. And as this cloud of chemical misery bloomed, what did she do? She calmly walked through the human wreckage, secured her Xbox, and went to the checkout line. When police finally caught up with her, she was apparently uncooperative and insisted she had been jostled and was just protecting herself. You know, a totally normal, proportional response to being bumped in a crowd. Use a chemical weapon. Cops later reviewed the security footage and said she was clearly the aggressor, deploying the spray to gain an advantage. The worst part? After all that, after committing a federal offence and assaulting 20 people, she was just let go. Police ruled it turbulent but couldn't find intent to commit a crime, because apparently gassing a crowd of shoppers is just part of the holiday spirit. Number 9, the red tag special. Alright, let's go to Las Vegas, a city that already has a pretty high tolerance for bad decisions made at 3 a.m. Now, add the sacred tradition of Black Friday. This was 2013, Thanksgiving night, at a Target. The store was, of course, a swirling vortex of humanity. One man, let's call him the victor, had successfully navigated the chaos. He had secured the prize, a big screen television. He was doing the victory lap, pushing his cart toward the checkout, probably already imagining where it would go in his living room. He had won Black Friday, except he hadn't. Another group of shoppers spotted him and his prize, and they decided that his victory was, in fact, their property. They confronted him, not to ask where he got it, but to take it. An argument started. A scuffle broke out. This wasn't a civilized debate over who saw it first. This was a physical tug-of-war over a box of circuits and glass, and then, because it's Black Friday and all laws of God and man are suspended, one of the assailants pulled out a handgun. Let's just absorb that. He brought a gun to a target on Thanksgiving to acquire a television. The man with the TV, realizing he was now in a life-or-death struggle over a home appliance, began to flee, still trying to wheel his cart away. The shooter fired. The bullet hit the man in the leg. He collapsed, bleeding onto the clean white linoleum. The shooters, realizing they had just escalated things from petty theft to attempted murder, fled the store without the TV. So, to recap, one man was shot, another was a fugitive, and the television just sat there, unclaimed, in the middle of a crime scene. Paramedics had to wheel the victim out past aisles of discounted wrapping paper and holiday-themed dog toys. It really proves that the old Vegas slogan is true. The biggest gamble you can take isn't at the poker table, it's in the home electronics department. Number 8. The holiday play date with Glocks. Imagine you're in a Toys R Us. The vibe is, well, it's sticky. You're surrounded by bright colours, the smell of plastic, and the distant, haunting melody of the I'm a Toys R Us kid jingle. You're just trying to find a discounted video game, worrying about price tags, not exit wounds. But this is Black Friday, a day when all social contracts are put on pause. This exact scene played out in Palm Desert, California, back in 2008. Two women, presumably on the hunt for deals, got into an argument. Witnesses say one bumped the other with a shopping cart. A minor, forgettable offence on any other day, but not today. Today it was an insult worthy of a blood feud. The argument escalated, and like a twisted version of a western, both of their male companions decided to get involved. This wasn't a hey, let's all calm down situation. This was an oh, you're disrespecting my lady situation. Alejandro Moreno, 39, and Juan Mesa, 28, stepped up. Words were exchanged, and then, in a moment of pure idiotic synchronicity, both men, both of them, decided this toy store dispute needed to be solved with firearms. They drew their guns, simultaneously, in the middle of a crowded Toys R Us. Shoppers screamed, children were grabbed, parents started using other people's kids as human shields, and these two wannabe action heroes opened fire on each other. Mesa hit Moreno in the chest. Moreno returned fire, hitting Mesa in the abdomen. Mesa fired again, grazing Moreno's neck. Moreno, bleeding heavily, fired a final fatal shot that struck Mesa directly in the heart. Mesa collapsed into a stack of boxed toys. Moreno took 3 steps, dropped to his knees and bled out. When the smoke cleared, both men were dead, 20 feet apart, in an aisle designed for children's joy, all because someone somewhere got a little too aggressive with a shopping cart. Number 7. The battle for pavement. The parking lot. That concrete purgatory where all human decency goes to die, one badly parked sedan at a time. On any given day, it's a mild annoyance. On Black Friday, it's a level from Mad Max. This brings us to Tazewell, Virginia, 2013. It's 5:47 a.m. The sun isn't even sure it wants to be here yet. Christopher Jackson, 35, is in his pickup, circling like a hawk. He spots it, an empty space, the Holy Grail. As he begins his turn, a silver Honda, driven by 61-year-old Ronnie Sharp, tries to claim the same spot from the other direction. They stop, headlights locked, a classic asphalt standoff, a T-pose of suburban rage. For 13 seconds, nobody moves. Then Jackson gets out. He gestures, points. I was here first. Sharp gets out, visibly agitated. Words are exchanged. You can imagine the high-level discourse. It's my spot. No, my spot. This is where a normal person would sigh, mutter a curse and go find another spot. But Ronnie Sharp was not a normal person. Sharp went back to his car, not to leave, but to accessorize. He retrieved a 3-inch folding knife. He advanced on Jackson and slashed him, cutting his forearm open. Jackson, now bleeding, retreats to his truck. You'd think he's leaving, right? getting out of there? Wrong. He reaches behind his seat and pulls out a .30-30 Winchester rifle. Let's pause. We're in a Walmart parking lot. At dawn, we have a knife, a rifle, and two men who haven't even bought their discounted tube socks yet. Sharp, seeing the rifle, doesn't back down. He lunges with the knife again. This time, he hits Jackson in the neck, severing his carotid artery. Jackson, in shock, pulls the trigger of his rifle. Click! It was unloaded. He collapsed, bleeding out in seconds, all for a 10 by 20 foot piece of asphalt. Sharp was arrested and presumably never did get that parking spot. Number 6. The Invisible Man. Sometimes the horror isn't the violence, it's the silence. It's the deafening sound of 200 people collectively deciding you're not their problem. In 2011, Walter Vance, a 61-year-old pharmacist with a known heart condition, was at a Target in West Virginia. He wasn't in a mosh pit. He wasn't fighting over a TV. He was just there, moving through the aisles. The store was hot, packed. Security footage shows him pausing in the houseware section, steadying himself on a shelf. He puts a hand to his chest, and then he just buckles, face first onto the white tile floor. What happened next is why this video exists. He was in aisle 7, partially blocking the path to discounted kitchen appliances, and people just kept shopping. They stepped around him. Some glanced down, then continued walking. Others stepped over his body, shopping bags in hand. One woman, pushing a cart full of electronics, was seen on camera nudging his arm with her foot to create more space for her to pass. He wasn't a person. He was an obstacle, a human-shaped speed bump between a shopper and a $20 blender. For nearly 4 minutes, Vance lay on the floor. His lips turned blue. A small cut on his forehead bled onto the tile. Cameras recorded at least 17 people who clearly saw him, registered a dying man, and made the conscious choice that their savings were more important. Finally, a nurse who had just come off her shift spotted him. She immediately dropped her items and began CPR, but it was too late. Paramedics arrived, but Vance was gone. He was pronounced dead on the floor of aisle 7, surrounded by strangers who were, let's be honest, probably just annoyed he was blocking the deals. Number 5. The Human Doormat. This is the one. The story that defined Black Friday as a competitive blood sport. November the 28th, 2008. A Walmart in Valley Stream, New York. It's 5 a.m. It's cold, dark, and over 2,000 people have been marinating in their own greed since midnight, all for a shot at a cheap flat-screen TV. Inside, managers had an amazing idea for crowd control. They took Dimitai Damour, a 34-year-old temporary employee who had only been on the job for a week, and stuck him by the entrance. Why him? Because he was big. He was 6'5", 270 pounds. They gave him zero training in crowd control and basically told him, hey, just be a large human obstacle. As 5 a.m. approached, the crowd outside began to surge. They pressed against the glass doors, which bowed and shuddered. Damour stood on the other side, watching a horror movie unfold in real time. At 5 a.m., exactly, the doors were unlocked. They didn't open. They imploded. The metal frame bent. The glass shattered. The 2,000-person mob exploded into the vestibule like a single, monstrous organism. Damour was hit by the mass and instantly knocked off his feet. He fell to the hard tile floor. He tried to get up, but you can't stand up when you're being trampled by hundreds of people who in that moment value a Visio more than a human life. The crowd did not slow. They did not stop. They stepped on his chest, his legs, his arms. Security cameras captured the scene from above, showing Damour's body simply disappearing under a wave of legs and shopping carts. Employees tried to reach him but were pushed back. For 3 minutes and 40 seconds, Dimitai Damour lay on the floor as his ribs broke, one by one, and his lungs were compressed until he could no longer breathe. When security finally cleared a path, he was unconscious. At 6:03 a.m., Dimitai Damour was pronounced dead. The cause? asphyxiation. He was literally crushed to death by bargains. And the worst part, the store stayed open. While Damour was dying, shoppers were checking out. Number 4, death by next day delivery. But hey, you're safe, right? You're not going to the stores. You're a smart shopper. You do all your bargain hunting online, sipping cocoa in your pajamas, clicking add to cart. You're not part of the problem. You're just placing an order that someone else has to fulfill. Meet Michael Harrington, a 49-year-old delivery driver in the UK. On November 25th, 2022, his Black Friday shift began at 4 a.m. His van was loaded with 342 parcels, nearly double his usual load. Each box represented a cozy, convenient, blood-free purchase made by someone just like you. To meet the holiday surge, Harrington had been working 14-hour shifts 6 days a week. His GPS tracker showed he wasn't even taking breaks. By 3:15 p.m. that day, he called his wife. The call log is chilling. "I can't feel my legs anymore," he told her. "My chest feels tight." She begged him to come home. He said he couldn't. He still had 118 deliveries left and was afraid of losing his job. His toxicology report would later show his system was flooded with caffeine, equivalent to 20 energy drinks. He was quite literally running on fumes and panic. At 4:23 p.m, fellow drivers spotted his van parked awkwardly on a curb, hazard lights flashing. Inside, Harrington was slumped over the steering wheel. A package sat on his lap, its label already scanned, ready for the next stop. First responders found him unresponsive. His skin was cold. They used a defibrillator 3 times, but his heart was silent. The medical examiner ruled it a massive heart attack, brought on by extreme stress, sleep deprivation, and a workload that was by any sane measure impossible. Michael Harrington died in his uniform, killed not by a stampede, but by the relentless crushing weight of 2-day shipping. Number 3, the longest drive home. The danger isn't just getting the deals, it's surviving the deals. In 2012, Arvind Tandal, a 41-year-old software engineer, was loading his family into their minivan after an all-night Black Friday shopping trip in California. It was 7:45 a.m. Tandal had been awake for over 20 hours, having worked a full day before heading straight to the stores. The van was packed. His wife, his mother, and his 4 daughters. The haul was impressive. Electronics, toys, and over $100 to $200 in savings. A successful night. His wife fell asleep in the passenger seat. The kids were quiet in the back. Tandal pulled onto Highway 101, set the cruise control and fought to keep his burning eyes open. He lost that fight. Near an exit, witnesses saw the minivan simply drift. No braking, no correction. Tandal had fallen asleep. The van struck a guardrail at 65 miles per hour, then careened back across 3 lanes, slamming into the concrete centre divider. The vehicle rolled 3 times, coming to rest on its roof, a crumpled monument to a good deal. Inside, the scene was horrific. Tandal's 24-year-old niece, who was sitting in the back, had been partially ejected and died instantly. His 14-year-old daughter, Nisha, suffered massive head trauma when the roof collapsed. First responders worked frantically, performing CPR on her small body in the middle of the highway. But her brain had already been deprived of oxygen for too long. Both girls were pronounced dead at the scene. Arvind Tandal survived, dazed, repeating, "My children, my children," forced to live with the knowledge that the bargains he'd hunted all night had cost him everything. Number 2, the parking lot payday. In 2011, Thomas Henderson, 32, was walking back to his car from a Macy's in California. It was 4:30 a.m. He was with his wife and friends, and the trip was a success. They were carrying bags filled with a Nintendo, kids' clothes, and a deeply discounted laptop. Christmas was sorted. They were laughing, talking about the deals they'd found. They were also being watched. Security footage showed 4 men following them through the dimly lit parking lot. As Henderson got to his car, the group surrounded him. One of them, 26-year-old Robert Andrews, demanded Henderson hand over his purchases. Henderson refused. This wasn't a negotiation. Andrews shoved Henderson against the car. When Henderson's friend tried to step in, he was thrown to the ground. The group descended on Henderson, punching his head, chest, and back. He fell to the ground, curling up as his wife screamed. He was just trying to protect himself, but Robert Andrews decided that the Nintendo and laptop were worth escalating things. Way escalating. Andrews spotted a metal tire iron that had fallen from Henderson's open trunk. He picked it up, raised it high, and brought it down with full force on Henderson's temple. The sound, witnesses said, was an audible crack. His skull fractured instantly. The attackers grabbed the bags, valued at $429.73 after discounts, and fled, leaving Henderson motionless on the asphalt. His wife knelt beside him, screaming for help as blood pooled around his head, reflecting the cheerful, stupid holiday lights strung across the storefront. Paramedics tried. They even performed emergency cranial decompression right there in the parking lot. But the blow was too precise, the brain hemorrhage too severe. He was pronounced dead at 5:22 a.m., all for the price of a mid-range laptop. Number 1, the birthday shift. And finally, we have the story that reminds us the monster isn't always the crowd. Sometimes, it's just one person using the chaos as camouflage. It was November 28th, 2014, at a Nordstrom on Chicago's Michigan Avenue. Nadia Azaldine, 22, was working behind the cosmetics counter. She was a law student at the University of Chicago, working a seasonal job to help pay for her education. It was 8:30 p.m. She had been on her feet for more than 12 hours. She had requested the day off, but management denied it. It was Black Friday. It was also her birthday. Security cameras captured Marcus D., 31, entering the store. He wasn't browsing. He wasn't looking for deals. He walked directly to the escalator, bypassed all the holiday displays, and went straight to the cosmetics counter. He was Nadia's ex-boyfriend. Her family had tried to get a protective order against him, citing months of physical and emotional abuse. He approached the counter. Witnesses saw Nadia's expression change instantly. A co-worker heard her whisper, "He's here." Dee spoke to her for just 8 seconds. Then, he pulled a .45 caliber handgun from his coat. Shoppers screamed. Nadia tried to duck, but Dee leaned over the glass display case, fired a single shot and hit her in the head. She collapsed immediately, falling against a shelf of perfume bottles, which shattered and mixed with her blood on the floor. Then, as shoppers ran for their lives, Dee turned the gun on himself, placed the barrel under his chin, and pulled the trigger. He died instantly. Nadia was rushed to the hospital. She was still breathing. She remained on life support for nearly 24 hours, but the damage was done. She was pronounced dead the next day. She wasn't killed by a stampede, a robbery, or a fight over a parking spot. She was murdered by a man who knew exactly where she'd be. Because on Black Friday you're not allowed to call in sick, so yeah, maybe just stay home. It's cheaper, and, you'll probably live. Subscribe for more reminders that humanity is terrible.